If you're coming from page builder land, then you might not be so aware of how in more professional web design, you need to globalize or tokenize all of your design decisions so that there's only really one source of truth. Now, in page builder land, this is often known as something like global colors or global typography, or some of them might have something like form fields where you can set it in one place in the global settings, and then that would apply across the site by default, assuming that whatever form plugin you're using actually adopts those styles. But it should be wider than that. It should have all of the design decisions on your website should be globalized or tokenized, so that there's always only one source of truth to all of these different design elements. Now, if you're creating a brand Bible or a brand identity for a client, then you would have all of these different things specified in that guide. So it might be something like the radius applied to buttons, or the shadow intensity if there's a drop shadow on elements, the radius applied to images, or whether they are always black and white, typography and heading styles, whether it's uppercase, lowercase. All of those different things should be specified in a client's brand identity. And of course, when you're starting a web project, you really want to, with consistency, bring that into the project. So it's really important to ensure that there's only one source of truth. Now, if you do this properly in a web project, you would have style sheets and variables so that any element only references those design decisions. And so if later on there's a bit of a brand tweak, you don't have to go across to all of the different elements and alter those individually, which you often have to do with using page builders. In more professional web development, you want to have all of these different elements linked up to that one source of truth, and then you only have to make one alteration. Again, we do understand that from page builders with things like global colors. You want to change your primary color if you've made all of the buttons on your site root connected to that primary color. You only have to change it in one place. It's the same principle, but it should apply to section, content styling. It should apply to your content width, line spacing. All of these things should be defined in your actual style sheets. So if we have a quick look here, you should have something that goes along the lines of this in your variables. Now, if you're using a framework such as ACSS, then you don't need this, because this is all going to be created within that framework, and you can actually dynamically change these in a really good interface and dashboard. But if you're not using a framework, you should have something along the lines of this. So here we have, for example, spacing variables. Space XS is equal to this. And this is how we create different variables. We just simply assign a hard-coded value to a variable name. And this is how we do that. I would recommend that they are organized in something like this along these lines. So here you can see that we've got neutral background color, and it has this hex value applied to it. Same with cards, same with text. Now, I don't know how this actually looks on the front end of a site, because quite honestly, I wanted to get this concept together. I had a chat with AI and I said, spit me out a nice variable list that I could put in my variables sheet. And it gave this out. But this is a lovely example of all of the type of organization that you should have. It's important to remember this, because when we do something like create a button, we want to ensure that we are perhaps, where are the colors? We would not put in the hard hex value like this, but we might say we are coloring that button with the variable accent. And then when we set that hover state, we want to put the variable accent hover, not this hex value. Our button might also have a certain amount of spacing, so we're going to give it the spacing of space S, and then it might have a small radius. So Actually, let's do that. That can be our actual activity. So I think I've got all these on the actual Etch site that I'm using as an example. So let's have a look in the style and variables. We've got space, and then we've got a primary color. Okay, cool. Yeah, we can do that. All right. So let's go back to our heroes section and container. What do we need? We need a heading and text, and not actually a button, but we're going to use an anchor. If I select the right one. Cool. Right, so first of all, let's just style this out. And actually, we do have a variable for the background. What was it? Oh, that was in the other one. So let's actually just create this out. So color palette, I'll just grab that. My cat is in a lovely habit of utterly ruining tasks as I get to the end of them, and I'm just gonna have to let him out and try not to kick him at the same time. I'll try, Percy. The kick thing was just a bad joke, don't worry. Right, so let's style out the background of the hero with the variable BG. So let's pop here, background color. You see we've got a hard-coded value in here, and we don't actually want that anymore. So let's see what we've got here. var BG, I think that's all it was. Ooh, very nice. So there we are. So we've changed that now. And if we color anything else to this color, obviously we only have to change it in one place, should we have to. Okay, cool. So let's get to the heading. Oh, I need to create the BEM classes for that. There we are. Hero heading, that was a play before, obviously. So I actually want this just to be white. I thought that was a variable that was already created, so clearly not. Let's have a look in Style Manager. I don't have a neutral. That's in the other example, isn't it? So, okay, bear with me. I am just going to... I'm being very naughty here. And just typing in. So again, we want to reference this with white. Cool. All right. Nice. Okay, now to the actual button. Okay, so this is an anchor link, but we're going to style it like a button. So we'd like it to have padding, space M. Okay, background is going to be secondary. Yeah, I thought I had that. There we are. That's the one that I put in my variables list. And we would like a radius, border radius of radius M. Again, yeah, that's cool. And you can see how, if I just save that, and we'll look at the front end. I'm not saying that this is pretty. You can see how we've styled all of these in ways that tie back to one source of truth. And that really is what all of that is about. So popping back to edit with Etch, we do also, I believe, have a gap. I really don't want to play around with this all too much. So space M, and so I would like this to be L. I'll show you that in a minute, actually. Let's do gap content as a application of space in the container. So the gap currently is 0.5 m, which is obviously rubbish. And I think it was called content. Yeah, gap content. Okay, so now let's say, all right, but we want to actually increase the space on all of this. We don't want to change this variable because others might be sharing it. And we want to keep a nice visual consistency. So in fact, we need to go along to this and change, what did I do? Space M, I want that to be space L. Or maybe we'll go XL so that we can see the difference here. Okay, so now gap content is tied to XL, which is equal to 4 rem. Okay, so this is going to make it bigger. And you can see there that it is bigger. Look at that on the front end, and there we go. All right, so that's how powerful variables are, and then it just gives us this one source of truth, this one place where we make all of these changes, and it's going to change everything across our entire website. Now, we as page builder users, we've had an idea of how that works with some color use and some typography and things like that, but this is much more powerful, but it's something that you have to get used to doing when you start a project. The important thing to remember is that we style the selectors that we create on elements. We style the selectors with variables, not with hard-coded values if we can ever help it. Certainly not with pixels. So that's the kind of thing that we need to remember. Create the variables, tie that into our brand identity, and then we style the selectors using the variables, and we control all of those in this section here. All right, cool. Hope that made a bit of sense. Just wanted to do a quick run through for those that are coming across some page builders and just trying to get their head around it. Again, this isn't what we want to do. Instead, I would say use ACSS. This is a lifetime deal for all of the websites that you need. It's a great framework, and it removes so much of the initial setup for each project. You can make it unique for every client's brand. That's what you need to be using. But if you want to take the more manual road, you need something like this in your variables sheet. Cool. Okay. Hope you have a good day, and I hope that was helpful. Bye-bye.